Hi guys, my name is Kevin. I'm one of the co-founders of PluginLab, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can create an Express.js weather GPT plugin using Vercel, GitHub, and PluginLab. Let's get started. So the first thing you're going to do is to sign up to pluginlab.ai. It's a free tool that we created for you to help you to create ChatGPT plugins. The good thing about PluginLab is first, it will allow you to get started quickly and provide you some templates to create ChatGPT plugins. But what's really good about it is it will help you to track every single user events. When a user requests something in ChatGPT, PluginLab will record that for you, give you information about your users, and then PluginLab will also provide you some interesting features like authentication or monetization for your plugins. Here I'm on the PluginLab onboarding, so if you already had an account, you can click on create a new plugin. Otherwise, if you just created an account, you'll get to this screen. Here, what we'll choose is start from a template, since PluginLab provides now many templates you can start with. On that screen, you can see 3 templates. So the first one is using Python and Flask. The second one is using Weather GPT using Next.js. And the last one is using Express.js. And in this video, we're going to use the last one. So here I would choose Express Weather GPT. So basically this plugin will allow us to start with an Express API deployed on Vercel, and it will talk to the Weather API. So it will give us a quite realistic example of what we can build with plugins. So the first step here is only to click on deploy actually. So I will click on deploy and I'm redirected to my Vercel account. So if you don't have any Vercel account or any GitHub account, you have to create one. Here I already linked my Vercel account to my GitHub account. Same thing, if you've never done that before, you'll have to link your GitHub account. It's quite easy, so I will not show you that in this video. But basically here I choose my favorite GitHub account and I will give a name to my repository. So I will call it Express YouTube, for example, Express YouTube demo. And then I click on create, and now Vercel is going to create the repository with the template provided by PluginLab. So my repository is created, and now Vercel is asking me to add some APIs key in the environment variable. So here is asking for the weather API key, and I can follow the link here to get my API key for free. So I already have an account, but if you don't have one, you can subscribe. When you get your Weather API account, you are redirected to this page and you can just copy the API key. Then I will paste it here and I will just click on deploy. And now this process, depending on the template, can take a few seconds or a few minutes. The Express template is quite fast. So yeah, it's deployed already. And now Vercel is going to redirect us to PluginLab. So we are redirected back to PluginLab, and you can see now the second step is already filled out for us. So for example, here I have my project name, which is the repository name. I can name it another way if I want. This one is fine for me. And PluginLab added the Vercel deployment URL. So this URL is where your API is deployed on Vercel. So you don't have to change anything, I just have to click on continue. Now PluginLab will ask us the manifest file, and you can see that some fields from the manifest file has been filled out for us. So I suggest you don't change those fields, in particular the description for model, because description for model has been created by PluginLab to match what the plugin template is doing actually, and to match the features of the plugin template. Indeed, you're here to create your custom plugin, so I suggest you start with the example, and then later on when you add some features to your plugin, you'll be able to update the description for model and the manifest file on PluginLab. Another interesting thing to note is you can click here to view the OpenAPI specification, and as you can see, PluginLab provided the OpenAPI specification for us because PluginLab provided the template. So PluginLab knows how the code is working and how the plugin, the starter plugin is supposed to work. So it provides you the OpenAPI spec and the manifest file with some pre-filled fields. So I would just close that. And I will just add my contact email here. Here I'm fine. I will just create the plugin. And boom, that's it. The plugin is created on PluginLab. So now PluginLab provides me the plugin URL. You're probably asking yourself why PluginLab is providing a URL. The reason is ChatGPT will talk to PluginLab and PluginLab will talk to your Vercel deployment. So it's very important to understand that PluginLab will be in between of your Vercel deployment and ChatGPT. And that's the reason why PluginLab will be able to provide some powerful features like authentication, payment, quotas, and user tracking. Here, I will just copy the preview domain provided by PluginLab and I will go to ChatGPT and install my plugin. So I'll go on GPT-4, plugin store, develop your own plugin. I will paste this URL. That's great. ChatGPT found our manifest file and our open API spec, so I can click on next and install the plugin. Let's try if it works. Okay, so the plugin is working. ChatGPT returns me the results. And if we go to PluginLab again, we can go to dashboard. And here in the user event section, we can see the event we just triggered. So great. So far, we started with the plugin template on PluginLab. We deployed it to Vercel and we installed it on ChatGPT. Now you're probably wondering how you'll be able to update your plugin and, customize it to provide some special features. So the thing is, you just have to go to your GitHub account. And if you go to your repositories, you'll see that Vercel created the repository for you with the template. So I can open it. And here is the code of my plugin. I just have to clone it. And I will open it in my favorite code editor. The great thing about this template is it's quite easy, so you can get started very quick and you don't have to bother with anything. So basically you have an API directory where your endpoints will be located. After that, you have a public directory which is used by Vercel to serve the static images and files. It's using the Vercel CDN. And then you have the services directory, but you can create any directory you want. And this directory contains, for example, the weather service that's used to communicate with the weather API. So at this stage, if you want to really create your own plugin, you probably don't want this weather API feature. So you want to start from there and create your own plugin. So that's what we'll do in that part of the video. So let's say I don't want it to be a weather plugin, I just want it to be a coffee shop plugin, and I want to create it such way that a user can ask ChatGPT to give it a list of coffees, for example. So let's get started. So I will start by creating my own endpoint. So I will call it /API/coffees. So here, for example, I could create a function named getCoffees, which takes no parameters, and I will return a JSON of the response. So here I will just create a new file. I will call it coffees.js, and I will export a function named getCoffees that will return a list of coffee. So here I'm just hard coding the list for this tutorial, but obviously you will probably do some database calls or some API calls. So every coffee will have a name, a description, and a price. It's not an asynchronous function, so I would just remove that and that as well. I would just make sure the function is imported. And that's it. I have my endpoint. So I don't need this endpoint anymore. I will remove it. And I will probably change this one, like welcome to coffee shop. This one doesn't matter since it's not used by the plugin, but anyway. So that's it. I can remove the weather.js file and remove everything related to it. We just use my own logo I found on the internet. And this one is a JPEG, so that's fine. I will remove the old one. So that's it. I'm happy with my new plugin. What I will do is I will run it locally using Vercel just to be sure everything works fine. I'm using Vercel dev, so if you don't have Vercel, you have to install it. You can do npm install -g Vercel, and Vercel is serving my API so I can test it. I will test, for example, API/coffees. I can see I have an error and I will debug that. Yeah, so basically that's because I didn't install the dependencies at first. So I will do it and I will start again. Now if I reload the page, it works. So I have my list of coffees. So I know my API is working, and now I will just push it on GitHub and deploy it to Vercel. By pushing a change on GitHub on the main branch, it will trigger a new deployment to Vercel automatically. So as you can see, Vercel just deployed my new API. So now what I will have to do to be sure ChatGPT is able to use my plugin, I would just change the manifest file and the open API specification to explain ChatGPT how to use my plugin. So I will go to PluginLab, plugin settings, and here I will just update the manifest file. So I will just change the logo, which will be logo.jpg, the description as well. Here for the description for model, I keep it simple, but if your plugin is doing some complex stuff, something complex, you have 8,000 characters as a limit. So feel free to add as much context as possible so ChatGPT can understand what's your plugin doing and how and when you should use it. I will not change the name, I will only save the manifest file. If I reload the page, you can see the logo has been updated. And that's okay for the manifest file. Now I have to change the open API specification. So what I can do is I can either create a new version or update the current version, or just update the current one. So I click on edit, and here I will replace this URL by my coffees URL. And I will change the summary of the requests, get the as well as the operation name. I will remove the parameters since it doesn't take any parameters. And I will also change the description of the response, which doesn't return anymore the weather data, but the coffees. What I will do here, because I'm lazy, I would just ask ChatGPT to generate the open API specification for me. So I will just go on a new ChatGPT conversation and say, hey, I have this JSON returned by an endpoint. Write me the response for the open API specification. I will ask it in JSON and I will copy the response here and I will paste it. Now I will save my new open API specification and I'm ready to go. So we updated the manifest file and the open API specification in PluginLab, and now those files are served by PluginLab. The only thing I have to do is to go to ChatGPT and reinstall the plugin, because the open API specification is fetched every time ChatGPT makes a request to your plugin. However, the manifest file is fetched when a user installs your plugin. So if you change the manifest file, you have to reinstall the plugin to be sure ChatGPT is updated. So I will go to plugin info here. I will copy this URL, which is the URL of PluginLab, and I will reinstall the plugin on ChatGPT. I will go to develop your own plugin. I will paste the URL. And I have now my new open API specification. I can click on next, install. Our plugin is installed. Let's try it out. And you can see ChatGPT is now using our plugin. So as a quick recap, we've been able to start with a template in one click. We deployed it to Vercel and to GitHub as well. Every time we'll deploy a change to our GitHub repository, it will deploy it to Vercel automatically. And now we can manage our manifest file and our open API specification through PluginLab. The good thing is if we go to user events, we can see everything that's going on our plugin. And the next step for you will be probably to activate the authentication. You can do it in one click using PluginLab, so you don't have to configure anything anymore on your manifest file. PluginLab will manage the authentication for you, provide you the UI for the authentication portal, and you will be able to add monetization as well. If you're interested by those features, I will add the link in the description below to the videos where I cover those features in particular. I hope this tutorial has been useful for you guys. If you don't want to miss any other tutorials or any news about PluginLab or ChatGPT plugins, feel free to subscribe and feel free to give me any feedback in the comment below. I see you in the next video and I wish you a good rest of your day. Bye guys.